They laughed first. Not loud, not openly. The kind of laughter that lives in smirks, raised eyebrows, and quiet comments exchanged just loud enough for you to hear, but soft enough to deny later. I was standing near the glass wall of Conference Room C when it happened, holding a printed report that no one had asked for, watching a group of executives nod at each other, like they already knew the ending of a story I hadn't even finished telling yet. My name is Elena Carter, and for 7 years I worked inside the heart of one of the most powerful financial technology companies in the country. From the outside, the company looked untouchable. Glossy headquarters, billion-dollar valuations, headlines praising innovation and leadership. From the inside, it was a machine built on silence, fear, and very carefully hidden lies. That morning, the CFO leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and said, "Elena, we appreciate initiative, but you're reading too much into routine discrepancies." Someone else added, smiling, "You've always been thorough, maybe too thorough." That was the first laugh. I had spent 6 months tracking irregularities in licensing royalties. Tiny deviations at first, fractions of a percent shifted across regions that supposedly didn't even generate revenue yet. Anyone skimming the data would miss it. Anyone who wanted to miss it would dismiss it. But I didn't miss it. Because this wasn't just numbers to me. It was structure, flow, cause and effect. The more I followed it, the clearer it became. The company wasn't just misreporting. It was building a second shadow system designed to inflate valuation while quietly draining billions from subsidiary obligations. When I tried to explain this, they interrupted. When I showed spreadsheets, they skimmed. When I connected timelines, they joked about stress and burnout. One executive actually said, "You should take a vacation before you start seeing ghosts in the data." That was the second laugh. By noon, my access badge stopped working. No email, no warning, no HR meeting. Just a red light at the turnstile and a security guard pretending not to recognize me. My company-issued laptop was remotely locked while still sitting on my desk upstairs. My calendar was wiped clean. I stood there for a moment, surrounded by employees who suddenly avoided eye contact, and I understood exactly what was happening. They weren't firing me. They were erasing me. I went home that afternoon carrying nothing but my phone, my personal notebook, and the quiet certainty that they had just made the most expensive mistake of their lives. Because what they didn't know, what they never bothered to ask, was that 2 months earlier, when my concerns were first dismissed, I had stopped reporting internally. I had started documenting externally. Every discrepancy, every altered file, every timestamp, every internal approval trail that pointed upward instead of outward. I had mirrored systems, archived metadata, logged conversations, saved off-site backups, not out of revenge, out of instinct. That night, while the executives celebrated another successful quarter with catered dinners and congratulatory emails, I was on a secure video call with a compliance attorney who had only said one sentence before going quiet. "Elena, do you understand what you're sitting on?" I didn't answer right away. By morning, the phrase, $5 billion exposure appeared in writing for the first time. Over the next 48 hours, everything accelerated. External auditors were alerted anonymously. A regulatory inquiry opened under confidentiality. Partner firms started asking questions the company had never rehearsed answers for. Shareholders noticed a delay in a scheduled announcement. Legal teams scrambled to identify the source of the leak, never realizing the source had already been pushed out the door. Inside the office, the mood shifted. Laughter disappeared. Meetings stretched longer. Emails became frantic. Executives who once dismissed me now asked HR if they could reach out and clear misunderstandings. My phone rang more in 2 days than it had in 2 years. I didn't answer, because by then, I wasn't an employee anymore. I was a witness, and the empire that had mocked me was already cracking, not from the outside, but from the weight of its own lies. By the time the company realized what was happening, it was already too late to control the narrative. At 8:17 a.m. the following Monday, the internal server logs showed the first forced audit access request. At 8:19, the legal department froze all outbound communications. At 8:26, the CEO's assistant cancelled every external meeting on the calendar without explanation. And at exactly 8:41 a.m., an email marked confidential regulatory inquiry hit the inboxes of senior leadership. Panic does not arrive loudly. It arrives quietly, in sudden silences, in doors closing, in people speaking only in half sentences. Formerly confident executives stopped making eye contact. The same people who once laughed at me now whispered my name like it was something dangerous. They tried to trace the leak. They pulled access logs. They interrogated analysts. They blamed junior teams. They accused competitors. But the truth was far simpler and far worse for them. The system itself was speaking. The auditors followed the same path I had followed. Licensing revenue routed through shell entities, delayed recognition of liabilities, inflated regional growth figures timed perfectly before valuation checkpoints. What looked like innovation was actually a carefully engineered illusion. A $5 billion illusion. By Tuesday afternoon, the board convened an emergency session. By Tuesday night, 3 executives resigned for personal reasons. By Wednesday morning, the stock halted trading. That was the moment the media found the story. Headlines didn't mention me at first. They never do. They talked about unexpected exposure, accounting complexities, strategic misalignment. But behind closed doors, my name was everywhere. HR called me 12 times. Legal left voicemails asking for cooperation. One executive sent a message that simply read, "We should talk. This doesn't have to go this way." It already had. On Thursday, regulators subpoenaed internal communications going back 7 years. Every joke, every dismissal, every internal email brushing off concerns became evidence. The same culture that had mocked scrutiny now had to answer for it line by line. The most devastating moment came during the emergency shareholder call. The CEO tried to reassure investors. He spoke about temporary uncertainty and long-term vision. Halfway through his speech, an analyst interrupted with a single question. "Can you confirm whether the unreported licensing obligations total approximately $5 billion? Silence. That silence erased the company. Within hours, partner firms suspended contracts. Credit lines froze. Subsidiaries scrambled to distance themselves. Employees who had once worn the logo proudly updated their LinkedIn profiles in quiet desperation. And then came the final blow, the one no PR firm could spin. A federal filing made public confirmed intentional misrepresentation. Not negligence. Not oversight. Intent. The empire didn't fall because of one whistleblower. It fell because it had trained itself to laugh at the truth. As for me, I testified quietly, calmly, with documentation so precise that no one questioned credibility. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't celebrate. I simply explained how the system worked, and how it had been abused. When the case settled months later, the company no longer existed in its original form. Assets were sold. Leadership barred. The brand became a cautionary case study taught in business schools under a single heading. What happens when you silence the wrong person? People often ask if I felt satisfied. The answer is no. I felt something better. Relief. Because the moment they laughed at me, they revealed exactly who they were, and exactly why they were destined to collapse. I didn't win by destroying them. I won by refusing to stay quiet when silence was convenient. They mocked me in the office. And that mockery cost them everything.